Good morning. Good morning. It is November 17th, Wednesday, and I'm super excited to be here again. Um, it's a beautiful day. Good morning, Miss Shabri. How are you, my friend? I just want to welcome everyone and just rejoice with you. It is a beautiful fall day. And sometimes, I look outside my window and I just get amazed. I have this beautiful tree. You probably have heard me talk about it before, but there's this gorgeous tree that lights up for me every morning. And I'm going to miss those leaves when they fall off. But it's like red and gold and yellow. And it's so beautiful. So, yeah, I I hope that you have something that you can cling on to and just be thankful for. Yes. Um, so I'm going to get right into it. Today I'm going to continue talking about Psalm 19. This is part 2 of Psalm 19. Yesterday I talked about part 1 and we only got through verses 1 and 2. So today I am going to just dive in a little bit more into this psalm because I as a songwriter, this psalm has everything that I would be looking for if I'm studying like a thought process, if I'm studying why is something being said, how it's being said, how it's being presented. Good morning, Abby. How are you, my friend? You're always so faithful. You're a faithful friend, Abby. Thank you for joining. And so I was saying that I'm going to be talking about Psalm 19, part 2. Now, yesterday when I was talking about the Psalm 19, I did say that we were talking about David and how David was just written out as David. All of the Psalms that we've read has said a Psalm of David. And it didn't say a Psalm of King David, a Psalm of His Royal Highness, a Psalm from the office of the king. Like it didn't say anything like that, right? David was just presented himself as David, as an ordinary guy. And everybody else after him was referred to as king, right? King Solomon, King Hezekiah, but David was known just as David. And so I thought that was really powerful. And and we also talked about David's idea of probably stepping out into a balcony and seeing the beautiful day that was before him. And so he wrote this psalm. Thank you, Abby. You're so sweet and you're so kind. David said, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands." And so he was so observant, right? And he took the time to write this song because this was an actual song because it says to the director of music. So he wrote this. He took time from his busy schedule to write about the glory of God, to write about the creation that God has made. And so, excuse me. So if you didn't join me, we unpacked this a little bit yesterday. So if you didn't join me then, you can go back and see that because I thought it was really, really powerful. But I also believe that David wrote this because he needed to teach and instruct the people of his time. And music is a great way to educate the masses, right? I don't know if they had schools then like we do now. Perhaps they did. Perhaps they had, the kids going into an area where they would learn. But we don't know that. But we know that David used music as a tool to educate, as a tool to help the people understand things that they didn't understand, because these songs that he wrote were sung. They were sung in the they didn't have synagogues then, but in the temple. There was only one temple. Everybody congregated at the temple. Everybody went there. The men went there and they would learn, and then they would bring whatever they learned, they would bring that back home. So today we have schools, right? And so We don't know all of the stuff that they're teaching to indoctrinate our kids with a bunch of things, right? But I believe that David felt the weight and the responsibility to teach the people through music. And that's why we have all these songs. And in today's world, we are educating people through music too, both good and bad, right? Some songs are good, some songs are not so good. And if you want to influence a culture, you use music. You use music. Why? Why do I even say that? Because music is so powerful, so spiritual, so out of our world that it goes deep. It goes down deep. And it influences how you feel and what you do, right? Music has the power to lift up your spirit. Or if you hear a sad song, it has the power to make you cry, right? And so music is very, very influential. And it's used in that context. It's used to help you learn. It's used to help change your mood. It's used in so many different ways. So let me just tell you a quick little secret, right? Before I knew Jesus, listen closely. Before I knew Jesus, I would listen to certain types of music. And that music was not the very best thing for me to hear. But I didn't know better at the time. So it kept me a prisoner. It kept me a prisoner to things that I shouldn't be doing and things that I shouldn't be saying. The lyrics to some of the songs that I sang back in the day, boy, they were a little raunchy. Let's just say that. And, as you're listening to that and you're putting that into your spirit and you're putting that into your heart, into your ears, into your thoughts, you act out on it. You act out on it. And so certain song lyrics that back in the day I used to listen to would provoke me to do things and behave in certain ways that today I am too ashamed to admit. Right? And so music at the time influenced me tremendously. But I know it's just not me. I know, I have a few people out there that are following the Christ now because of the things that they used to do back then. They needed to be rescued, right? I needed to be rescued from the stuff that I used to do before I knew Christ. And so, music influenced me tremendously. And I know that it influences you, right? So can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? Like, we need music to influence us in a better way, right? To see things. But I would say that, if you think about it and you hear certain lyrics, they get into your emotional system, right? They go in deep. And before you know it, you're visualizing and you're acting out what you're listening to. And that could be in a good setting or that could be in a not so good setting. And so I remember meeting Jesus for the first time. Abby says, I needed to be rescued as well. Girl, I need to chat with you because I cannot see you any other way, Abby. I cannot see you any other way than just loving God, loving people. That's the only way I see you, girl. So I would love to hear what kind of person you were before Jesus, right? We all have the BC and the AC. So before Jesus, we were probably hopeless. But I remember when I came to know Christ for the first time and when I prayed, I had this, I don't know how to describe it, but I had this stronghold, right? Stronghold to things that I was doing back then. And music was a big part of it. Music was what led me to behave and act in certain ways that wasn't good for me. And so I remember asking the Lord, like, you're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me because I love that stuff. I love that music. I love that style. And I can't give it up. I don't want to give it up. Like, what else? I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any other type of music. And so that music and that led me to a lifestyle that was a little bit out of control, or a lot of bit out of control. Good morning, Carolyn. I see Carolyn just joined us. Good morning. God bless you. Thank you for joining. So I'm talking a little bit about how music influences us and teaches us and, causes us, whether it's good or whether it's bad, it causes us to be a certain way. And so I remember I had to talk to the Lord about that. Okay, Abby is saying, I remember meeting Jesus at the lighthouse in the food pantry with Daisy Fletcher. Wow. Wow. That's where I met Jesus too, Abby. That's where I met him too. I met him at the lighthouse. That was my and it's so funny that it's called Lighthouse. Good morning, Ansa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. That's where I met Jesus too, at the lighthouse. We were rescued there. And anybody else, just share, feel free to share in the comments where you met Jesus. And, you don't have to get very elaborate, but just share how he led you out. For me, I knew I was living a lifestyle that was crazy. I'm sure anybody that doesn't know Jesus, that's the kind of lifestyle you lead because you don't know better, right? You don't know any better. And so Jesus had to pull me up, but I remember praying and saying, God, I need you to help me because the kind of music that I listened to, I knew wasn't good for me. And it just caused me to walk in sin and caused me to feel like what I was doing was okay. And the minute I met Jesus and asked him into my heart, I knew I needed to stop. I knew that the music I was listening to was a threat to my soul because it had me so bound in sin and because I loved the sin that I was doing. And so I didn't know how to let it go. I didn't know how I would stop listening to it. I didn't know, I didn't know how I could just walk away from that lifestyle. And I just remember crying out to God. I remember feeling like, this isn't right. This isn't right. God was giving me dreams that my life was heading down the wrong path. And, he was stirring my heart. Shabri says, Abby Nieves, wow, what a testimony. Shabri, you know Daisy Fletcher? Oh my gosh. Yes, she was a pillar at our previous church. That is amazing. What a small world. What a small world. Excuse me while I sip a little cup of faith here. That's incredible. That is incredible. Love it. Let me get back into this. For me, I'm just sharing my testimony. Wow, you do know her. That is incredible. What a blessing. Yeah, it's so amazing to know the small connections in our world. Yeah, Daisy's sister Ruth, who was an incredible prayer warrior in my life. Ruth was one of the first people that gave me a word about music being an instrumental thing in my life, because I didn't know. Back then I didn't know. I know music was important to me. I've always loved music. I've always been drawn to it. I've always been, called to it. And Daisy's sister, Ruth, gave me a word. And she says, I remember this, what God has given you is not meant for the world. And I was like, okay, because at that time also I was trying to get me, no, Ruth Davis, yeah, is Daisy's sister. So it was, yeah, wow, I feel like we're walking back into time here. That's incredible. But let me just continue here. This is an incredible conversation, how God just puts little pieces together that you and Paula too. Yes, Paula, Shabri, if you know Paula, wow, I'm just gonna fall out right here. I'm gonna fall out on my carpet. um, but it's incredible how the Lord leads us, right? How He directs our paths. We don't see it at the moment until we go back and we talk about it, and we see. But I'll tell you, after I met Jesus, and I prayed and I asked Him to help me, and say, Lord, can you help me just break away from all of this? You know what He did for me? Do you want to know? Okay, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. He, like, it was just like I got up, and there was this strength that came on me to turn away from the lifestyle. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, it was like the blinders came off, and I was able to see how filthy and dirty and ratchet, I guess would be the right word, how I was. I saw myself, and I was like, I can't be that way. I cannot be that way. It was making my life stressful and anxious, and I came to the Lord. I surrendered to Him, and He helped me. He helped me not to go back into that lifestyle. He changed my musical desires. I began to listen to clean music and praise and worship. And oh my gosh, when I first listened to praise and worship, I was crying. I cried so hard because I felt for the first time a peace that I didn't know. And at that time, praise and worship music was not like today's praise and worship music. It was a little corny back then, in my opinion. Maybe people might feel like that's not corny, but back then it was like, and it was corny to me because I was used to a different type of music, right? And so I kind of just like moved away from all of that and started listening to it, and I felt this peace, and it was amazing. For the first time in my life, I was like, I felt peace. And so I say all that to say that music influences you more than you know. Shabri says, amen. That's right. Music influences us. It influences our emotions, and it gives us whatever it is that we need. If we allow that music, right, the right music to enter into our soul, because it is very spiritual. And so David knew that, and that's why he used his musical abilities to teach the people truth. They needed to know truth. Uh-huh. I could show you some of the corny music, Shabri. And you might be like, no, that's not corny. That is amazing. But for me at the time, I thought it was really corny because it wasn't what I was used to, listening to all that crazy stuff I used to listen to. Okay, let me dive into. We're not going to be in this too long. I'm only covering 2 verses. But, so we were talking about the heavens declare the glory of God. So David was using music to teach the people, is what I was saying. And so in verse 4, David is talking about, in the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens, and it makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. And so I just thought that this was beautiful, so poetic, as typical David fashion. He was just always poetic. And like I said yesterday, he probably was just standing in his balcony at the end of the day. It was a gorgeous, beautiful sunset. And he sees like, wow, the heavens declare the glory of God, right? The skies proclaim the work of his hands. And so he's teaching because the people around Israel, right? They didn't serve the true and living God. So they had these beliefs about all kinds of gods, all kinds of false gods. But he was teaching the people, before you listen to what other nations and other people are saying, I'm going to teach you something, right? That the heavens were made by Jehovah, by Yahweh. And so, good morning, Daddy. Good morning. Thank you for joining. And so here, David uses this beautiful, beautiful analogy, right? And he takes the liberty first to say, God God the Father pitched a tent for the Son, right? So he says in verse 4, in the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the Son. And I feel like he uses that because in Israel, right, a majority of the land is desert. It's desert, right? So he knew a thing or two about tents. And so they used tents when they traveled to and from, right? If you're in the desert and you had a long journey, what covered you, right? So they would pitch their tents outside to take a rest and to take a breather from the heavy sun that was on them. And tents were also important at night, right? During a trip, you would sleep in a tent out in the desert. And so David described God sort of as a human in this particular verse right here. He described God as a human, that God pitches a tent for the sun to hide, to let people know it's time to sleep. And so I thought that was so beautiful and so poetic, and so it's interesting that he used that imagery in this part of the verse. And then let's look at how David so masterfully describes the appearance of the sun. He says, "It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber." It's like a bridegroom. Like, who uses that? Do you see what I mean? He was so poetic. He describes the sun like the bridegroom. And so he uses these two visual images to describe how the sun comes out. First, he says it's like a bridegroom. And bridegrooms are excited, right? They're excited on the morning of their wedding. They excitedly jump out of bed to prepare to be joined with their bride, right? So David uses this analogy to describe how the sun comes out in the morning. It's excited to be joined with the morning. And so he personifies the sun as a bridegroom. But then he says it's like a champion rejoicing to run his course. So I thought, what a distinct analogy to use, right? To throw in there. First, he says that the sun is like a bridegroom. And then he says it's like a champion. So what would a bridegroom and champion have in common? I'm going to take a little sip and let you think about that. What does a bridegroom and a champion have in common? What do you think? Let me just tell you, my coffee is so good today. If you were being tested in school, right, you had a pop quiz. Let's say you were in literature comprehension and you were taking an exam, and they would say to you, what does a champion and a bridegroom have in common? That David would talk about it and use it as a way to describe how the sun comes out in the morning. Would you think of something? Would you say, would you be able to answer that? I mean, because I thought it was I thought it was pretty interesting that he used that analogy. He didn't really talk about things directly. He used analogies. Okay, bye, Abby. Thank you for joining, honey. God bless you. Have a blessed, blessed, blessed day. So, to me, I feel like David used that analogy because what they have in common is that they both have a goal in mind, right? The bridegroom has a goal in mind, and so does a champion, an athlete, right? The bridegroom is excitedly moving towards the altar to be joined to his bride. And the champion athlete is excitedly moving towards the finish line to win a race, right? So they're both moving towards that goal. They're both moving towards that direction. And what I want to say is, as a side note, in case nobody caught this, in case no one noticed this and saw this, he's talking about a champion. This tells me that there was sports during David's time. I'm going to have to let my husband know that. He might want to read the Bible a little bit more often. There were sports in the Bible. Otherwise, why would David mention that? Why would David mention a champion in his analogy? So you see what you can discover if you don't just read something quickly. You have to read between the lines. So you just learned in Psalm 19, you heard it here first, people. You heard it here first. In Psalm 19, you heard that during David's time, there was probably track and field. There's track and field. He said a champion. It could be, any kind of sport. Who knows what they did? But he used champion, which is amazingly a great analogy to use, right? He didn't specify what kind of champion. He kept it very general. A champion. The sun is like a champion, making its way across the sky. So I don't think you ever thought about that before. And he's probably the only person that pointed this out. I know Paul talked about champions. Hey, Boz. Boz, what kind of champion do you think David was talking about? You think it was track and field, or, I don't know, throwing a javelin? But David was saying how the sun is excited to start its routine of moving across the heavens. And so in verse 6, David says, the sun rises at one end of the earth and makes its way to the other. And he points out that everything the sun touches gets its warmth. And again, I think that's beautiful. I think it's poetic. Have you thought about the sun that way? That everything that it touches, it gets its warmth. God made the sun. And specifically, he made it with a purpose to keep us warm and give us daylight. And so David was teaching that in this song, right? And so it makes you think, it makes me think anyway. I don't know about how you would say it, but I would love to hear what you would say. Yes, Boswell says the sun is life. Many people there's a group of people that don't believe that the things that we have here were created by God, that they just came out by itself, right? The Big Bang. But did the sun get there on its own accord? Like, even if it did, let's just say scientists were right, that there is no God and no designer behind creation. Then to me, how coincidental it would be that this massive ball of gases supposedly appear after a big bang. And then it's also suspended in midair with nothing holding it up. That it coincidentally also warms the earth and gives warmth and gives light, helps us to stay warm in the winter and keeps us nice and hot in the summer. Like, is that random? How random is an uncreated thing, right? Like the atheists and certain scientists say, how random is that to happen? Like, does that happen randomly? Yes, Boz. A fool in his heart says there is no God. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's hard for me to buy the argument that this thing just created itself, right? And scientists will debate and atheists will debate about these things. And we're not here to argue and we're not here to debate and we're not here to put anyone down. But we're here to let them know that it's much harder to believe that something randomly and mistakenly appeared out of nowhere. It's much harder to believe that you would have faith that something just popped up, that a big bang created it. And if that was the case, right, if it just randomly popped up, how did it get its purpose? Its purpose is to give warmth and to give light, right? How does it know when to come out in the day and come out and hide in the night? Or how does it know to bring heat in the summer and warmth in the winter? How did it know to have that purpose unless it was not designed? Right? And if God so creatively designed the sun and everything around us, how much more is he invested in you? Right? Did you just pop up out of nowhere? Did you just come to this earth without a purpose? God created you with a purpose. God thoughtfully and craftily, I don't even know if that's a word. Let's just keep it at thoughtfully. God thoughtfully created you with a purpose. He created you with a purpose. If he created the sun to have purpose, if he created the moon to have purpose, then he created you to have purpose. And that was what I believe David was trying to get across, right? He was helping people be thoughtful and point towards the things that God had done. So you were created with purpose. You were created with purpose. You're not an accident. You didn't just come out of anywhere. You were created with purpose. And I just want you to think about that for a little bit. It's hard not to believe that a creator, a master designer, was behind all of the beauty that we see. Like I said in the very beginning, there's a tree outside outside of my window that every morning it lights up. It lights up with the colors that the sun hits it, and it lights up with colors. And I believe it's there for my pleasure, for me to enjoy and appreciate it. There's a pattern about everything, right? There's a pattern in the seasons. There's a pattern in our temperature, right? And so do we think that all of those things happened randomly without it being designed, without it having no purpose? Did it happen randomly? No. Just like Boswell said, a fool says in his heart there is no God. And I'm saying that because there is a God, God creates things with purpose. So you were created with purpose. You were created to know him and to live out the things that he would have you to live out. And so I want to keep that right there. I want to leave it right there because I believe that that's what we were just supposed to talk about today. You were created with purpose. Just like God created the sun and the moon with purpose, you were created with purpose. And so your goal is to really understand what that purpose is, right? The sun knows what it needs to do. The sun knows that in the morning it comes up from its tent that God created for it. It comes up, it moves across the sky, and as it moves, it touches everything. It touches everything. Like David said, it rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. And if the sun has that purpose, then you have that purpose too. That when you get up in the morning, when you stand up to do whatever it is you have to do, you move across space and time. And you touch, there's nothing that's deprived of you touching it, right? You touch whoever it is that you work with. You touch your family, friends, strangers. There's a purpose why they come into your life for that particular moment, for that particular day. There's a purpose to it. And so you need to see that. You need to walk in that. You need to be confident in that. You need to not doubt that. Okay? So I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you for listening. And I pray that this helps you. This helps you to live a purposeful life. I feel like in the mornings it's hard for me to speak. I don't know what it is. I can't say the words. They don't come out right. But that you live a purposeful life. Just like the sun moves across the earth, that you live a purposeful life. Okay, Boswell says, yes, I know Boswell. Yep. The fool says in his heart that there is no God. Yes, we know that. Right? And he says they are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There's none that doeth good. Boss likes the King James Version. I like other versions, but anyway, but they all say the same thing. It's just how it's said. So yes, we don't want to not live our purpose, because then when we don't walk in our purpose, then we're denying the very thing that God created us to be. And we don't want that for our lives. We want to be created. I mean, we were created to be someone and to be something, right? You were created to be someone and to be something. You are the handiwork of the Father. The Father designed you specifically, gave you your eye color, your skin color, your hair color, your being, everything about you. He created perfectly for a purpose. And so we believe that with you today, that you're going to walk in your purpose. You're going to walk in your truth. It doesn't matter if your whole life you didn't think you had purpose. Well, I'm here to tell you, you got purpose, okay? And it's time for you to walk in it. You might be 99 years old. If you're still here and you're 99 years old, start walking in your purpose. Ask God, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Maybe it's just to be a parent and give godly wisdom to your children. Maybe it is to be a worker and do a specific thing, a specific ability, right? So we don't know what it is that you're supposed to do, but you know yourself and God knows you. And if you're not sure what your purpose is, then you ask the Lord and He will help you. Okay? So again, I'm just going to leave it there because I have to go. I have to start my purpose for today. Although I'd like to just sit here and chat with you all, but I do have to start my purpose for today. So this was just part 2 of Psalm 19. I may get into part 3 of Psalm 19 tomorrow. Not sure just yet, but just join me tomorrow and find out. And I pray blessing on you. I pray that everything you put your hand to do today prospers. I pray that you will go and move forward and not backward. I declare that you will walk in joy, that you will walk in peace, that you will walk in strength. Amen. Thank you, my friend. I can't wait for you to join me next week. By the way, guys, next week Boswell will be joining me. I'll let you know what day. I have a couple of friends that are going to be joining me on live next week because next week is Thanksgiving. And we are going to be talking about Thanksgiving stuff. What are we thankful for, right? The world is full of negativity and bad things, but we need to think about the good things and just give thanks for that. So next week, Boswell will be joining me, so don't miss it. And if you do happen to miss it, it's okay. You could always catch it on the replay. All right? So meditate on this word. Meditate on this word today. Ask the Lord to teach you, to show you things that you haven't seen, and He will help you understand. Okay? I bless you. I pray the blessing of God on you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make His face to shine on you. May the Lord lift up His countenance, that means His face, toward you and be gracious to you. And may He give you peace, which is called shalom. The shalom of the Lord, may it be yours today in Jesus' name. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great and amazing day, guys. Love you guys. I bless you in Jesus' name. Bye-bye.